Hi everyone, this is the fourth lesson video for chapter 8, and this is our course content for this video. First, we will introduce procedure and functions. When writing an algorithm, there are often similar texts to perform that make use of the same group of statements. Instead of repeating these statements and writing new code every time they are required, many programming languages make use of subroutines, also known as name, procedure, or function. These are defined once and can be called many times we need a program. A procedure is a set of programming statements grouped together under a single name that can be called to perform a task at any point in the program. A function, like a procedure, is a set of programming statements grouped together under a single name that can be called to perform a task at any point in the program. In contrast to the procedure, a function will return a value back to the main program. Parameters are the variables that store the value of the argument passed to the procedure or function. Some, but not all procedure and function will have parameters. Let's look at the procedure examples. Here are two examples, a procedure without parameters and a procedure with parameters. Look at the example with parameters. The print, start, end. Here is to make the start print on the same line without any space. Let's run the program and see the result. First, look at the example without parameters and print out 3 stars. And after changing it to the example with parameters, you can specify how many stars to print. Assuming you enter 5, you can see that the execution results print 5 stars. Or enter 7, you can see that the execution result print 7 stars. Next, let's introduce function. Remember what we said earlier, that function is different from procedure in that it always returns a value. And unlike procedure, function calls are not standalone and instead can be made on the right-hand side of an expression. Let's look at the program example. Let's write a function to help us calculate the area of a square. So this function is an example with parameters and return the square area formula side times side. Assume that the side length of the square is 25. We can directly print area 25 to display the area of a square. Or we can set a variable area to receive the value returned by the function area, and then print area. Next, we will explain global variables and local variables. A global variable can be used by any part of a program. Its scope covers the whole program, while a local variable can only be used by the part of a program it has been declared in. Its scope is restricted to that part of a program. For example, in this Python program, the variable number 1, number 2, and answer are declared both locally and globally, where number 3 is only declared locally. After execution, you can see that the output screen first print lines 30 to 15 of a program code, and the print value of number 1, number 2, and answer are the values defined in the line 10 to 12 of a code. Then execute the 17th line of code and call the test procedure. Line 6 to 8 of the program code correspond to lines 4 to 6 of the output screen. The print value of number 1, number 2, and answer are the values defined in line 2 to 5 of the code. Then we see line 19 to 22 of the code. The value of number 1, number 2, and answer print on line 7 to 9 of the output screen correspond to the value defined in line 10 to 12 of the code. This is because the variable defined in the function are called local variables and only exist in the function. If the variable asset in the main program is a global variable, this is a variable declared in the main program. Finally, in the last line of the output string is an error because the main program has tried to access the variable number 3, which is local to the procedure. Here is a practice for you to do. Please write an algorithm in Python as a function with a parameter to convert a temperature from Fahrenheit to Celsius. Here is the formula for temperature conversion. First, we define a function Celsius with parameter Fahrenheit, write the temperature conversion formula, and finally return the convert temperature temp. Next, write the main program. First, declare a variable to receive the input and convert it into an integer type. Then call the function Celsius and declare the variable temp to receive the value returned by the function Celsius. Finally, the convert temperature temp is output. Let's down. If you enter 19 degrees Fahrenheit, the program converts the temperature to 32.22222 degrees Celsius. Okay, let's move on to the next part, library routines. Many programming language development systems include library routines that are ready to incorporate into a program. These routines are fully tested and ready for use. A programming language IDE usually includes a standard library of function and procedure. These standard library routines perform many types of tasks, such as the string handling discussed in the previous video. Here are some examples about library routines in Python. The first is div mode x, y, which will return two values. The first is the quotient of x divided by y, and the second is the remainder of x divided by y. The second is round num n, which round the number num to the n decimal place. The third example is random, which return a random number between 0 and 1 inclusive. What needs to be noted here is that the random module must be imported before calling the random function. We will also use some simple examples here to demonstrate how to use this library routine. First, declare the variables x and y to be 23 and 3, and then declare the two variables div and mode to receive the two values returned by div mode x and y. Finally, print out the div and mode. After execution, you can see that the quotient of 23 divided by 3 is 7, and the remainder is 2. If we want to get the result of x divided by y without diving the quotient and remainder, we can declare a variable n to receive the result of x divided by y. But you can see that there are many numbers after the decimal point in the answer. Here we can use round. Put the first parameter into n's and the second parameter into the number of decimal place you want to print. If you want to round to an integer, 4 in 0, you can see that the print result is 8. Or if you want to round to the third decimal place, enter 3. You can see that the print result is 7.007. Finally, demonstrate how to use random. If we call random directly, we will see an error message saying that name random is not defined. So remember to write from random import random inform. After execution, you can see that the floating number from 0 to 1 is printed on the screen, and the results are different each time it is executed. There is the little test here. I would like to ask you to modify the previous program exercise. Temperature conversion, changing output the answer to the third decimal place. Take a look at the code. Change the last line of code, which is output to round temp 3. And the answer can be output to the third decimal place. Finally, in the last part of this video, we will focus on how to create a maintainable program. Have you noticed that in the previous programming practice, when naming variables, arrays, procedures, and functions, we use meaningful words to represent the variables? We will talk about arrays in the next video. This is so that we can understand what we are writing when we come back to the code one day in the future. Therefore, when naming variables, array, procedures, and functions, we use words that can represent the meaning of them. Procedures and functions we taught in the previous part is also a method that can help the program code to look better, dividing the code into modules based on tests. There is another method that can help us understand our correct logic when we come back to the code one day in the future. Comment. In Python, you can add sharp in front of the code to comment the code, or write text after the sharp to indicate what the code is doing. If you want to comment many lines of code at once, or if the text is divided into many lines, you can add 3 quotation marks before and after the part you want to comment. We will demonstrate how to use comment. Suppose we now have a program code that looks at this. We can add a comment above the function to indicate the meaning of this function. Or some code is not needed now, but will be used in the future. You can also use comments. If you only have 1 or 2 lines, you can add sharp in front of the code. If it is a piece of code, you can add 3 quotation marks before and after the code. We have finished all chapters of programming concepts. Next, we will enter the concept of array, which is divided into 1-dimensional array and 2-dimensional array. See you in the next video.